So, welcome everybody to the Spacia Techs podcast. Today we are hosting Samuel Owino. Trust me, I have never met him either. I cannot even give you an introduction about who he is, so I'm just going to let him do that for himself. But I am Malin Mayenga. I will be your host today, and my co host is Fred
Fred
Omondi.
Oko.
You can introduce yourself, and then we can let our guest for the day do his introduction, because if I do that, I will not give him justice as he would. So yeah,
So,
welcome guys.
so thank you so much, our listeners. My name is Fred Oko, and I'm the co-host for this Special Tech podcast. And welcome on board, and thank you also, Sam Owino, for joining us. Actually, Sam has been a Special Tech member for quite a while. I think since the beginning of Special Tech, he has been a regular, even at our spaces. Even
Uh-huh.
yeah. So Sam is quite known. Among Special Tech members. So you're not really a visitor except to Marlin. But for the sake of those guys who have joined us, because we along the way we have gotten very many new members. So you
Yeah,
can
true.
introduce yourself for those guys, and then we can take it away. Yeah.
Yeah, just a refresher for people like me who don't quite know him well. So Sam,
Now
you
you
can
want
take
to do what?
I do.
So,
You should know people.
people.
Anyway,
Yeah.
thank you so much, Marlin and Fred, for giving me again another chance to share my thoughts. As if anybody follows me on Twitter, they know I really don't hold back in terms of like sharing my thoughts on things and having good discussions. So just a brief introduction. So my name is Samuel Owino. I'm a software engineer by profession, and I prefer to look at it as I write code, and with everything that's around that. In my current life, I'm more preoccupied with building a startup that goes by the name Life Planner. So we are building a sort of an operating system for people's lives that kind of helps them to achieve their goals and realize their vision and stay healthy and wealthy, which is kind of a universal goal for almost everybody. So that's kind of what I do on a day to day. But within Life Planner, apart from the normal startup running operations that I get help with from my co-founder, I'm mostly writing code, designing features, and looking at specification and such. I also do operations at the company, so we're able to like design things around the programs that we run for the products and for the other marketing related things. So I'm kind of wearing multiple hats, which is expected for like running a startup.
Yeah, jack of
But
all trades.
exactly, yeah. But I'm really glad to have that opportunity. So I'm really happy to be here. I hope we'll have a fun conversation that
Mm-hmm.
will enlighten all of us and the listeners as well.
Okay, nice. So I've just heard quite a number of things. You're a software engineer, you're a startup co-founder, so many things. I can't even get into the details of it. So the first question I'll ask that everybody asks in tech: are you a self-taught developer, or do you have a background in technology or computer science?
Yeah, so for me, it's kind of a mix of both. So I got
Mm-hmm.
into an IT program. I went to Masinde Muliro University for
Yeah.
Bachelor of Science in Information Technology, which
Mm-hmm.
I did for 2 years, but then I dropped out.
When
Uh-huh.
was that? When was that, Sam?
So this is
Our local
We
bookable.
want to know your age.
uh, yeah, this is a long time ago. While maybe
How
most of the
long
listeners,
is long time ago?
long
yeah,
time, long time
very very.
pato pook.
Yeah. Some people look at last year as long time ago. And
Yeah.
because if you look at the COVID timeline, 2019 is like 100,
Long time
like
ago.
yeah, it's a century from now.
Yeah.
so so this is back in 2014. That's when I got into
Gosh,
Masinde
bro,
Muliro.
that's a long time ago, man. I was in
I'm
high
very
school.
old.
Come on.
I'm so old.
Where in 2014, I was actually in third year. You
Wow.
guys.
Yo, I was
Yeah.
in high school. Are you
Yeah.
guys kidding?
Okay, look at me
Yeah.
at my old age. Anyway, yeah. So,
Yeah.
Ah,
so
y'all
back
are
in
old.
So that was 2014.
Yeah.
So that's when I got into Masindamluro University in Kakamega for IT. Then I did IT 2014. So I think I got in end of 2014. So I did 2015. And then end of 2016 is when I left to like go to the real world and practice software engineering in Eldoret. So in Eldoret, I worked for Ampath. They do like uh, medical informatics research. So I was building like applications for like collecting data and just helping with things related to like medical research. So that's the history in regards to like how I started. So I left
Okay.
and and kind of taught myself the rest of the things.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
so between leaving, when did you leave Ampax?
Yeah, so I left Ampath after I think 3 years of if I could call it service. So I got in 20. So I got in officially in 2018, January of 2018.
Yeah.
Was it 2018? Yeah, January of 2018. So I'd left in 2017 is when I got the offer. Then 2018 I started working officially. So I started with them 2018, 2019, and 2020. Yeah. So I left Ampath officially in April of 2021. That was last year.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. So did you like get into another company, or this is when you decided to start your startup company, planner?
Yes, so you know what they say like about doing side hustles. So that time my
Yeah.
startup was my side hustle as I was working at Ampath. So by the time I was exiting in April, we had
Mm-hmm.
made some kind of traction, and I felt like, oh, now I can like jump off and just focus
Yeah.
on. Yeah. So
Okay.
I left and went straight into like working on my startup. So I didn't join another company after.
Okay. So what gave you the idea to start Life Planner? Like what was the vision behind it?
Yeah, so before Life Planner, I had already worked on a few ideas.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing I did when I got my job, the first thing I did with my first payment was purchase a Google Play account. That's the first thing I did because I knew I would be building up. Yeah, and
Yeah.
it only made sense because it's like $27. That's
Yeah.
Kenyan money. That
That,
time it
that's
was
little money. That's
yeah,
that's
that's small
coins.
money. Yeah, small
All
money.
right, all right. Sensible talking.
Yeah, so when I got my first pay, I purchased a Google Play account, and there's some ideas that I'd been working on in the past, some few apps I'd built here and there. So I
Mm-hmm.
published some of them. Of course, they didn't do very well. So back, yes,
I think that's like the life of any startup founder. You try one, two, three things, and then they fail, and then there's just that one that will pick up, and then just get you into the life of co-founding and just starting your own company. So, what were the other ideas that you looked into but failed, so that you settled on this one that you're doing now?
Yeah, and man,
yeah,
by the way, I'm also curious about
mhm.
what's the use of a Google Play account? What do you
Yeah.
use it
So
for?
yeah, a Google Play
Yeah.
account, it's good for like testing out ideas.
Okay.
You have several ideas in your head and you don't really know whether they're going to work in real life. So build up something over the weekend and publish it and see how people respond to it. That's one use of
So,
it.
so that, that that's that's how the sphere of Android development.
Yeah, that's under
Yeah,
the sphere.
and
So,
then yeah. So yeah. Just go on. Uh-huh.
oh yeah, I wanted to elaborate more on Google Play. I
Yeah.
think what you're driving at is like explain that to like the listener what actually happens.
Yeah, the,
So
the
Google
whole
Play.
environment of deploying an Android application, because I saw somebody asking if, for
Yeah.
example, Android applications have the back end,
Yeah.
yeah, and how you deploy Android applications. And I thought that question was kind of interesting.
Yeah, so on Google Play is a marketplace, like where you'd like get your latest drip. If the listener understands that slang, so like shoes and hats. There's a place that you go and there's multiple people selling shoes and hats and
On
jackets.
Google Play.
Yeah. No, I'm giving an analogy. So so
Uh-huh.
Google,
Okay. I was going to be shocked because why did I not know about that?
I see you. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Uh-huh.
Google Play is kind of a marketplace for apps. So that's why you'll find Uber, you'll find Glovo, you'll find your photos application. You'll find all sorts of applications, and you can install them from that one place, and even maybe purchase some of them. So Google Play is the marketplace, and developers build apps. They upload them to Google Play, and then customers or other users with Android phones can install the applications from Google Play.
Yeah.
So that's how it works. So it's a marketplace for apps. Um, so on your question, Marilyn, the idea that I tried out were mainly centered around education. So
Mm-hmm.
I built some education apps for science, mostly covering physics, chemistry, and biology. What I did is
Oh,
I got the content available, compiled it into like one application with lecture videos that were available open source, and made that application available for free with the ads. So that's one that was the main idea that I tried at the beginning.
yeah.
Unfortunately, it didn't work. And if you're curious why, I think you'll ask me as a
I
follow-up question.
am. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm guessing you
Why
want to
did
know
it
why.
not work?
Yeah, so the reason why it didn't work also addresses one of the main reasons one of the main questions we've been getting under LP is, uh, by LP I mean Life Planner. So Life Planner
Mm-hmm.
doesn't show any ads. So Life Planner is an application for self-care, like I mentioned earlier, and productivity. And one
Yeah.
of the things we don't do that other applications do is we don't show any ads. And that is addressed by my previous trials on the other ideas. The main reason that those applications did not work, or that business model did not work, is that the marketplace for ads is kind of turned against the developer. So the developers don't get to make a fair payment for running the ads that they run on their platform. And I can go into specifics, but just know that the I don't want to say the payments are really low, but the main problem is you need to have like 1 million active users to make
On an
what I would call
application.
on an application to make what you'd consider a livable wage. You get
Makes
that was the main
sense.
reason why we veered off. The other reason was for the user. So
Mm-hmm.
apps that run ads collect a lot of data, some of it but not by the consent of the user, and we felt
Yeah.
like our customers deserved better, in terms of like, because Lifeline kind of collect you put in your really personal information. So we didn't want to expose that to advertisers. We wanted that to remain in the custody of the user. So that's why we
Ah,
also
yes.
decided to like keep ads off the platform.
Yeah, and you know that data privacy is becoming such a big deal now with, most of our lives are just on social media. People document everything. So data is becoming such a gold mine for companies that have applications that collect that. So to make sure that you protect the privacy of your users is a good initiative on your end, because the more users can trust you to keep the information private, I think the more the retaining power of your application will be higher. Because I'll be there if I believe that you're going to protect my privacy. There's the issue that has come up with the Safaricom the other day. They're being sued in a class suit action because people believe that the SIM swap issue that has been very rampant of late. People believe that it's an inside job, and the CEO of Safaricom, Peter Ndegwa, is insisting that that is not going on, within the company. But you start to wonder, how then does somebody get such personal information when it's not from within the company to get, M-Pesa, and they can withdraw money from your bank account just from the details they get from your SIM card. So yeah, I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
it's.
yeah,
Mhm.
and the issue of Safaricom, now that you're mentioning it, now in the news.
Yeah.
So
Mm.
in the news, Safaricom is actually getting sued. Like I
Yeah,
read a
it
story
is.
yesterday. And this is something that we have even discussed several times. I think twice in our spaces, where I
Mhm.
was mainly asking who is to blame here between Safaricom and its customers, because, and I think somebody mentioned that the responsibility goes both ways, where the user is supposed to be ensuring that their data is safe. Like for example, let's say, making sure, for example, that your phone has a password access, such basic things. And then there's also that responsibility that the corporate bodies have towards ensuring the user data. But I think it is such a great thing that class action, whether it succeeds or not, because it kind of rattles these guys, and then they start thinking that Kenyans are noticing, and guys are really tired because like there's some banks. I want to mention the names of those banks, but there's some banks where you'll have your money in that account, but you're not really you're not at peace, especially when you hear the stories of guys getting guys getting robbed of their money by staff, like, and they are recurring cases. Like each and every time you hear this particular bank, staff is stealing money, and,
Yeah. We're gonna have to have this conversation like on the side later on, so that I know which bank it is you're talking about, and so that I can avoid them like the plague. We don't want to say anything on air. We could be sued for defamation. So yeah,
but
you may attend.
it's in the public domain, and I think this is a really great thing that is happening, so that any ni kama ikue funzo, that as in it's just too much, man. It's just too much.
If they win, if these people win the action, the lawsuit, then it will be funzo. Otherwise,
even if they don't win, I think Safaricom the management will start to take notice that, hey, we have to do something. Otherwise, the next lawsuit is going to succeed. Yeah.
And more people will be brave enough now to even start their own personal suits if this one goes through, because they'll be
true.
Like I personally have to educate my mom every time about, if somebody calls you up and they're asking for your ID number, don't give them. If somebody calls you up, they ask you for your PIN, because she has suffered this a couple of times, and
really,
I kind of multiple times. For them, they, at least for like the elderly, they don't really know this tech stuff.
Just say boomers. Just say boomers. They know themselves.
The boomers. They don't really know about the stuff. So somebody calls them up. They're like, we noticed that your son was in an accident, and now we need your ID number and your phone number so that we can, they'll give that up very quickly unless they get the necessary. And I guess that's the first point about Safaricom's role in ensuring that this kind of thing doesn't happen is, one, educating your users. This has been going on for long. I have not seen them make an effort towards like really educating the users on this. The only thing they tell you is, usishare pin yako na mtu yoyote, but your pin doesn't matter in this context. They get your ID number, then they do a SIM swap, and everything is wiped out from your account. And a few people have argued to me on the technical, rather than my technical argument towards this is correct, but me and some of my colleagues have been against the security aspect nature of the M-Pesa application. I've seen that a lot. People are complaining about the security measures put in place for the app, and I don't know, I just never trust this, bank apps. The M-Pesa app also just falls in that bracket. I don't trust using them just anywhere, because just security is such a big deal now, and hackers are just becoming so smart, because with the more technology is becoming sophisticated, the more they are uncovering new ways of getting this data or just accessing this stuff. So I don't know. Let's just go the old school way. The SIM toolkit is enough to withdraw my money, send, buy. I don't need to see what the balance is. I'll just And if the organization decides they want to publish an application to like take over what the SIM toolkit has been doing, then they should ensure that all security holes have been closed, at least the ones that seem obvious to even layman. Like one we were arguing about, if you lost your phone right now and it kind of has your authentication details saved up. If I go and do a SIM swap, my authentication details are still on that device. So will Safaricom know that there's a phone I lost that had my authentication details and doesn't currently hold my SIM card? And if somebody initiates a transaction there, will they be able to block it? You get, and one of them.
I think it should work like WhatsApp. You see, WhatsApp, when you get a new phone
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you it should. The other one is automatically blocked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you see, even that there's still a security flaw because somebody will will get your details, log in on a device, and then you'll be the one getting locked out.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah,
Yeah.
although they added a measure where the SIM card has to be present in the initial registration, which I think kind of try to address that. But they still need to do more, and they need to like educate users on some of these security issues that they have, so
Sure.
that people stop losing money. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
true.
I think that is also important because on the issue of educating users, I think they've been sending some messages about, oh, fraud tip, don't blah 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 blah. But
Yeah.
sometimes that is not enough. There's
Yeah.
more that can be done
They
always.
definitely need to do more, especially with regards to the new technology they're introducing, namely mainly the M-Pesa app. I think the other thing could be, of course, we've discussed negligence in terms of like the organization not putting in enough measures to prevent this. The other thing could be, some of these things are thought to be inside job, so they probably need
Yeah.
a better training process for their staff, so that they ensure that the guys who are really handling the core services or the core mechanics of the payment transactions are actually people they can trust, and they have, and if somebody gets exposed, they have mechanisms to avoid them having unlimited access to information that would otherwise be used by the scammers. So I think
Even
that's
even Yeah, even
Mhm.
for guys who have left the company, there needs to be, a good way of letting them easy out of the systems because, you let me out. Let's say for about the Coca-Cola the secret recipe. I'm sure there's been like many employees that have worked for Coca-Cola over these
Yes.
years, but somehow we still don't know the secret ingredient that they use in the drink. So
Yeah,
why is that? Are
yeah,
they
exactly.
bribable, or
My,
why has this
my
secret been kept
opinion, my
all these
opinion,
years? Mm-hmm.
I'm a conspiracy theorist to a certain
Mm-hmm.
extent.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's no secret. I tend to think there's no secret formula being
Then
used.
why don't other companies make the same drink the
I
same
think
way
that's a
they do?
market. I think it's a marketing gimmick. To me, it's a
Okay,
marketing.
yeah.
We will like okay. We like I think we have developed very advanced even lab tests. Somebody would have come up with a lab test for that. As in
Okay.
unless they are getting the ingredients from out of space, I think that's
I
Then,
think
I
then my question would be,
yeah,
why
really
has
ya
no
kudanganya
other
watoto.
company, why has no other company made Coca like the Coke yet? If it's not a secret ingredient.
If you ask me, I think there are companies which have made even better drinks, compared to Coca.
Oh,
I don't think
okay. That's up
I
for
don't think
debate.
I don't think I don't think Coca-Cola is that great as a drink.
Oh
I think
wow!
yeah,
I love
I
we
think
have a hater here. We
their
have a
marketing
hater.
game is just on top. Their marketing
yeah.
game is on top, and then coming into the market and toppling companies such as Coca-Cola, like as a startup, is going to be really really hard because I remember hearing stories about their market wars with Pepsi, for instance. As in those guys, it was like real war, where guys were breaking bottles. Like it was like an all-out war for market dominance. So
Yeah.
I think to some degree Coca-Cola has just become too big,
Mhm.
and there's just no way that someone would come into the market and start competing with Coca-Cola, because even today, if you wanted to make a drink that could
Yes.
rival Coca-Cola, like in taste, and
Yeah.
you could make it, but where are you going to sell it? Where are
Exactly.
you going to sell it? So there's even a Kenyan company called Club Soda.
Mhm.
There's a Kenyan company
Yeah.
by that name. With
Oh,
that, yeah,
Club Soda
Club
is
Soda.
Kenyan.
Yeah, I think they're
I
Kenyan.
would think
They're
so.
Kenyan. Yeah, they are. They are.
Mhm.
They are.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm like 95% sure that Club Soda is Kenyan.
Okay.
I've
Okay.
never drunk it, but I think they are there in terms of taste and all that.
I hope
So
I hope they are not those Kenyan companies that are like the Kenyan startups we know of, where it's Kenyan, but it's not really Kenyan.
Yeah, there's an international investor behind it.
Yeah, in the news.
Yeah. They have
The
that.
news. In the
Exactly.
news. In the news. Startups.
Yeah.
Let's talk about
Okay.
startups. Now that we are going to that direction. Maze,
Okay.
it's a tough environment for startups, and I don't know,
Mm.
starting with Kune, and some you are a startup founder,
Yeah.
and there's a space which we held with you and Sheila Belgian about. It was such an awesome space, and we in November, from November 10th, now this event to the listeners, we are
Yes.
beginning a series of spaces on startups, where we are going to discuss the whole environment about startups, startup funding, the idea, coming up with the idea, getting investors, building your product, marketing, all that you're currently
Yes.
doing. But
Yes.
currently, startups are not doing well, and especially around funding. Like, what is going on? Because I read the Business Daily, and the
Yeah.
Business Daily, even Mongo Spaces listed some of the companies that have just beaten the dust over
Yeah.
the past week, even the past week alone, the past 2 weeks. Kune Foods is no more. We Farm was such an awesome
Mm.
company. They are no
Sky
more.
Garden.
Sandy is really
Yeah.
down here. And then there was also Notify. I have never heard about them until maybe yesterday. They closed shop. And then
Yeah.
the biggest one is Sky Garden. Maze, Sky Garden. Well, come on, when you fan wa Jumia,
Yeah.
Sky Garden, but you have never shopped with them. I've never
Yeah.
actually
For sure.
ordered
Me, I'm a
anything.
Jumia guy.
Yeah, I've never
Yeah.
actually ordered anything with Sky Garden, but I used to see them.
Okay.
And until I heard about Wayne Gakuo working at Sky Garden, I never thought that those guys were legit.
Okay. Wow.
So when I heard that Wayne
Mm.
Gakuo was working there and he was the front-end engineer Angular at Sky Garden, you can kumbe Sky Garden ni kitu legit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So when I heard that Sky Garden is actually closing shop,
Mm.
I was like, kumbe this thing was even Kenyan in the first place. It was a Kenyan startup. So what is
Wow.
going on around the startup ecosystem? Like, what are the challenges that you guys are experiencing? You as a startup founder.
Yeah, I think as a startup, you usually have two options when you're considering financing. People call it funding, but I like looking at it as financing because
Financing.
you're looking for money to like keep going, to pay staff, to pay for premises if you have that, and to pay for operations. So one option is venture capital and angel investors. Basically, take somebody else's money, put it in your company, and use that to like run operations until you're able to make money. The other option is commonly known as bootstrapping, is where you're like, okay, if I have this one customer that's paying me X amount of shillings, then I'll look, if the customer is paying me 1 shilling or 10 shillings, I'll figure out how I can use these 10 shillings to finance my operations until I get another customer that will pay me 20 shillings. And if I get a fifth customer that now pays me another 20 shillings, and maybe now I have 300 shillings, now I'll be able to hire XYZ staff. I'll be able to maybe secure premises for this based on revenue that's coming from the customer. So that's referred to as bootstrapping. So most of the startups that are biting the dust, rather going through this difficult situation, are mostly VC funded. I think at least the ones we know of, they get like a ton of cash that, to me and you, you'd consider, that's a lot of
Crazy.
money.
Yeah.
You have no business closing shop with that kind of money.
Exactly.
Yeah, but the problem is this money is being poured into a business that doesn't have a sustainable, consistent revenue stream. And if that doesn't exist, it means you're going to burn through the cash, but at the end of the day, you are not going to have a sustainable business running because your expense. I think in business, everything boils down to the basics. Your expenses
Should
are
be less
above.
than the profits coming in.
Exactly. So as long as the revenue you're getting is less than your expenses, you are not a sustainable business, and any mere inconvenience will kill you straight up. So I think that in my opinion, with the little business knowledge I have, I think that's where most startups are getting it wrong. Instead of building a sustainable business, they are using venture capital as a business model. Venture capital is just a way to help you grow faster, acquire more customers, and get into other markets that you are not able to get into with the existing resources that you have. But at the end of the day, your business should be sustainable. You should have a product that people like and they are happy to pay for, or you're able to gain revenue in some method from the product itself. And the revenue gain is enough to at least keep the operations of your company running.
Yeah.
So the venture capital should be for growth, not for sustaining the business itself. So I think that's where they're getting it wrong, in my opinion.
Yeah. So, but even when you are going back to the idea, the ideation stage where you are coming up with the idea, there's some and one of the things I think that someone needs to do is kind of the market analysis. And yes, market analysis, and it involves even studying your prospective customer and doing all that. When you consider companies like Sky Garden, for instance, because Sky Garden came after Jumia, and we are not purporting to be experts in startup analysis here, but just looking at it from the layman's perspective, and just using your basic knowledge of selling mandazi on the street. Like if you put if somebody is selling mandazi, real nice mandazis, and then you as the neighbor, you say like, you know what, I can also sell nice mandazis, and then you just put your stall next to that initial stall, without really doing an analysis of the kind of footfalls around the area, whether two of these mandazi stands can be able to be sustained by the current market size. And when I look at the example of Sky Garden, for instance, I look at, because they launched after Jumia launched, and e-commerce was just starting to hot up. Jumia waliingia kwa market, and then Sky Garden Yoyo. There were also others, like there's also which other e-commerce sites are there by the kuna Jumia, kuna Sky Garden,
Kilimall,
kuna Kilimall, and then I just wondered a lot, because the operations, first of all, the operational costs of such things, because Jumia is international, and currently I think they're getting funded by Wall Street, because they listed in the US.
Wow.
But when I considered, for example, Sky Garden and the operational costs, Kenya is actually a tough. People are saying that Kenya is a tough, business environment, because even in the supermarket space, like Game, Game supermarket, Game wali give up, man.
It's a South African company.
Yes, it's a South African company.
I've also heard that South African companies are finding it very hard to venture into the Kenyan market, maybe because the reason was because they had not done an analysis on the Kenyan what does the customer landscape look like? Do Kenyans love the same things that South Africans do? Because it seems like they had the assumption that because the business did well in South Africa, it would probably do well also in Kenya, and then it's a disappointment.
And when you consider, for example, the marketing model of Kune Food, as in how watu walikuwa wanakuwa enjoy that there's no way you are going to compete with Mama Pima, and these guys were like, hey, we went to Kenya, and the first thing that we noticed was that there was no cheap food,
Good health food.
And then Mama Mboga said, wait a minute, nipatie time.
Ulisikia wapi?
Ulisikia wapi? Yeah, so some do you think it's a matter of guys just rushing to launch products before doing a proper market analysis? Because had Kune, for example, the founders of Kune, for example, done a proper market analysis, they could have realized that, for example, the earning capacity of the average Kenyan, like the customers that they were targeting, they were, first of all, there are so many establishments that they were going to compete against, and then there was the things like Uber Eats, there was Glovo, but then Mama Mboga was going to be, not Mama Mboga, but Mama Pima, the Kibandaski was going to be their main competitor. And I think they failed to understand this. So do you think that it's common for startups, for example, to overlook some of these things when they are when they're coming up with these quote unquote brilliant ideas to wow the market.
Yeah. You're totally right about that. So a lot of startups overlook that, overlook market research, and a lot of them are unwilling to pivot. I think most startups that are successful are the ones that eventually like realized the initial idea will not make it long term, and they switched up and went for what would work for the market. And in my view, just like I told you about Google Play, the initial idea and the initial product, it's meant to read the market. It won't be your final thing. It's supposed to go out there. You're supposed to observe how people react to it, how they respond to it, and then go back to the drawing board and decide, okay, this is the data I've collected, this is how people have reacted, so and so was willing to pay for it, so and so said this thing is not worth paying for, and we collected this amount of revenue, and this is how the business behaved. Now, from this, can we come up with now a new business idea that now will fit the market itself? So market research is, I think it's very critical, and I think most startups ignore it. And the startups that really ignore it are like I told you, the ones that have venture capital as a business model, kind of startups, where it's let's come up with an idea, we'll go to YC Combinator or some network of fairly well-pocketed individuals, and they'll give us a ton of money, and we'll be able to secure premises, we'll have fancy offices, we'll hire 100 people, and it will be nice, we'll take photos, it will be wonderful. But in a sense, the business idea itself doesn't work on its own. So all these other fancy things are being run by the venture capital they're getting. So I think it goes back to the sustainability thing that I was telling you about. So if they did market research, they would have realized, okay, we are able to sell this number of plates per day. Who is buying the plates? How are they responding to our prices? The price that they expect us to pay with, does it match up with our competitor, namely the Kibandaski?
Yeah.
And with all of that considered, do we have a sustainable business here, or should we consider switching up? And I'm sure if they analyze the market that way, they would have been able to come up with a better idea. Maybe collaborate with the Kimbandaski to like tell them, okay, what will supply you with a stall, will supply you with delivery guys. We have this mobile platform that will be able to, your customers will be able to make orders via, and for us to just act as an intermediary. That would have been a nice pivoting for them. But of course, being that they didn't do the market research, they would not have probably seen that aspect of like pursuing the idea. So in a sense, I agree with you. That's definitely, without doubt, that's why they missed the point. Yeah.
And then there's also that aspect of lack of, because the business and the main purpose of the government is actually to set up a nice environment, like a conducive environment for startups, for businesses to thrive. Yes. And some of these startups, for instance, and some of these companies that are closing shop have complained about the lack of a conducive environment. And this is something that even is being cited in the manufacturing sector, that things like electricity is very expensive in Kenya. Inputs is expensive. The taxation, startup founders and business owners are complaining about taxation. So you find that you can even be making revenue, but KRA wako nawe hapa na hapa. Yeah, and during the campaigns, for instance, as Emil are talking about, giving startup founders, and businesses like a 7-year grace period before they start paying taxes. And I thought that was such a nice idea. Unfortunately, they didn't go through.
Yeah, but if you allow me to interrupt you, I think they were lying, because they would not be able to sustain that. With all these loans that we have that we're defaulting on, there's no way they would allow operations to continue running here. And also, what they also overlooked, if they did that, the people would have taken advantage of it. By you set up an operation, you run it for those 7 years, then you kill it, and then you launch it with a different company name. Then you never pay tax.
But when you're looking at this now from the perspective of a startup founder,
Yeah,
what
yeah.
are some of the challenges, for example, that you can cite, in your own perspective, ama in your own, experience that, you know that this is not your own failing as a
Yes,
business owner. For example, you did your market analysis well, market
yes,
research well,
yes.
your pricing is right,
Mm-hmm.
your analysis of your customer segmentation yako iko sawa, but
Yes.
you find that external forces now are the ones which are killing you. What are some of these external forces that are killing businesses and
Mm.
awesome startups? Because, for example, in the case of people like Sandy, I think Sandy's business model was like awesome.
Yeah,
You know,
it
Yeah.
still is.
it's, yeah, I think they're scaling it down to
Mm-hmm.
kind of relook into it and maybe pivot, as you're saying. But it was a nice business model from the onset, or the onset. So I don't know what's going on, maybe whether it is internal or whether it's external. So from your perspective, what are some of the external forces, external factors that are just killing businesses from the outset?
Yeah, I think top on my list is monopolies, because let's be honest, there are no really new ideas. The idea that you come up with, probably somebody else already thought of it. And if you're unlucky, the person who thought of it was sitting in a boardroom in the seventh floor of Safaricom House. This company is a trillion shilling company.
Yeah.
So if they see you coming up to like kind of implement the same idea, this monopoly will crash you on like your second day. So monopolies, I think, are one of the issues that are kind of one of the problems that are being are kind of affecting startups negatively. And maybe to describe that within the ecosystem that I work in is I have to deal with large tech companies all the time, and I feel uncomfortable with the kind of power they
Mm.
have over the pipeline. So in my day to day, I deal with Apple mostly and Google because first of all, they control the marketplace where I
Yeah.
distribute our applications, and second, they are the one that they are the ones that control the pipeline with which my revenue comes to me. You
Yes.
get
Yes.
so it comes from the
Ah,
customer. Unfortunately, it doesn't get to me. It goes to Apple or it goes to Google. And Google is like, okay, very nice. This customer is has done very well for paying you. Now we are taking out 30%. You get, and the other.
There's actually I don't know whether you guys listen to John Oliver. It's John Oliver who
Mhm.
does what's his show called? It's on HBO.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he did a documentary, not really a documentary, but a show on the
Mhm.
power of Google and how
Yes.
Google, for example, even now Google controls even the search results. There's a way that they control the search results that are found, such that their own. For example, if you wanted to search, for example, Airbnbs in Diani, if you
mhm.
say Airbnbs in Diani, the first search results that you're going to be shown is
Yes.
the results from Google. Is it Google Maps?
Yeah. 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 Google
Yeah,
Maps or
Oh,
yeah,
somebody who has
yeah,
already paid them for ads.
yes. So you're likely to
yeah.
land in a Google site, and not an independent site. So
Mm.
the power of these corporations, by there, what you're talking about is so true. Yeah, yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, a lot of businesses, not not even a lot. If you're an internet business, you cannot exist if you don't run through, if you don't give Google some of your pocket change. So,
Yeah.
so you have to give Google an arm and a leg for you to even exist, for you to like reach your customer. So for us, we pay them for advertisement. So you'll probably pay Facebook, you'll have to pay Google to advertise. And then when your advertisement is successful and you've actually acquired a customer, then
Mhm.
your revenue still goes back to them.
Yeah,
You get,
yeah.
and they get a
That is
cut from that.
crazy.
They control how governments tax you. Yes, Merlin?
It's
Marlene.
like they get, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
man. For every time,
Can,
if I had $1,
can I just call you?
every
Can I
time
just call you
somebody.
Lynn?
No, 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 no. Lynn is just a different. That's another name, not mine. Call me Mayenga if you can't with the first one. My mom's creativity was over the roof with that one.
Mayenga.
But yeah,
Okay. Mayenga. Let me
like
go
I
with
was,
Mayenga.
what was I saying? I was saying like you have to pay part of your like the profits that come through to you to Google if you get clients through them. I
Yeah,
didn't
yeah.
know that.
So Yeah, you have to pay part of your profits, and if it's in the Apple ecosystem, it's actually worse because you pay a yearly subscription. That's like more than $100 every year, and part of all your revenue is kind of slashed. So they get a cut for all the revenue they collect. And also the governments, the individual governments of the regions that you operate in get a cut from every transaction that you get, including Kenya. Actually, recently implemented that. So if you do a
Yeah.
purchase on Google Play, the Kenyan government actually demands a particular cut from that. So there are a lot of like middlemen with I don't want to say fat stomachs, but there are a lot
Yeah.
of middlemen who, with their hands out, that are within the pipeline that kind of make it difficult. And they are monopolies, the other governments or large corporations. So it's very difficult to like stand up and say, oh, you cannot charge this, you cannot take this from me. They'll just suspend your account and you won't exist. There's a company that actually took Apple to court last year, and I think it's a games company. If it's not Nvidia. Then they took Apple to court regards to they wanted to collect their revenue themselves, because nowadays, in the internet, it's you can integrate PayPal or Visa, whatever, and just collect your money, and you don't have to like pay a cut to somebody else. But Apple actually prevented them from doing this, so they took Apple to court. I've been following that. I don't know how. I haven't checked yet what the ruling was on that case, but if they win, then it will allow developers to integrate revenue collection mechanisms on their apps. They won't have to run through the organizations, which it will be difficult. They'll definitely fight this.
They'll be losing a lot of money, so I don't think they will let that just slide that way.
Yeah, billions of dollars every year that they get from that. So it's going to be tough. So that was to answer your question, Fred. I think the biggest within my ecosystem, the biggest challenge is monopolies, and I'm not sure, but I feel like, for instance, in Sandy's case, they probably make the mistake that a lot of startups do. I don't have enough information to say this authoritatively, but I think they spread themselves too. They try to cover too many spaces. There's a time they're even doing food deliveries. They're like, oh, is it Glovo or Glovo or Sandy?
You gotta make the money. You gotta make the money.
But you see, when you do that, then the core business suffers. The thing that you started initially
really increase.
Your purpose.
Yeah, your cost increase.
The purpose has to remain the same regardless of how much you scale.
And you confuse your customer because they're wondering, okay, I was using you for logistics and like delivering my stuff, but now you are telling me to order 3-piece chicken through your. So what is this about? I mean, I'm already getting this. It gets confusing, and when customers can't tell what the product is for, they stop buying the product. Customers need to understand what they're paying for. So I feel like, because I noticed Sandy way back when they were just beginning, and their initial mission was very clear. Even when they did the initial pivot to like doing now small logistics, it felt like they were still within that logistics business. So recently they kind of went haywire into other areas that they went into supplies, they went into food delivery, and I was like, or suddenly they're offering an API for a fee to like monitor you. Like, you're doing too much, you guys.
Hustle must hustle, you guys. We're in a recession. Don't judge them.
But
that is a challenge. That is a disadvantage of being a Nairobian. You just end up doing too many things. I think that's kind of what they.
Don't you think it's Safaricom actually that is leading this trend? Because you remember Safaricom. Actually, Safaricom does a lot of things when you think about it, because Safaricom, even at some point, they had a little cab. They had partnered with little cab, and they were offering ride hailing.
Free rides. I saw something. I saw something like that some time back.
Safaricom, was it? Little cab. Yes.
Yeah.
And then Safaricom actually had a time. There's a time where they were into e-commerce with Masoko. You remember Masoko?
I remember.
I think it was Bob Colimo who launched Masoko, and it was like, with the fireworks and all, and then it just fizzled out like.
For sure, for sure.
It was never heard of again.
Just like
And
just like the Safaricom engineering community.
That's not true.
we contacted shortly by yeah. But when you think about this, I think
Yeah.
on one side you find that I think it is maybe the tougher business environment because, for example, in the case of Sandy, they find it is like they're into integrated. Is it called vertical integration, and then there's horizontal? So I think these guys. First of all, you can find that your core business, for instance, is not generating you enough revenue, and then you say, I'm spotting an opportunity in this area. This is kind of untapped.
Yeah.
But as you're saying, some of these pivots, are unrelated to the core business that they were doing. So, for example, you find that you can argue that food delivery and
Yes.
maybe what was their core business again?
Yeah, so like at some point they were like, if you, for instance, you go to a flower garden and you
Yeah.
like purchase some flowers, you could like hit them up and they'll bring you a truck, and this truck carry the flowers with the vases to like your compound. Or if you bought a sofa in town and like you wanted to like get it to a particular spot, or you are a business and there are things you usually move around, you can like call them up and they'll
So that
So
was
basically,
majorly
it was logistics. It was
logistics.
just a logistics company. So
exactly.
yeah, so when now you find that a logistics company is now getting into food delivery,
Yeah.
then kind of there's a mismatch between. But when you look at it, for example, as a product founder, you find that you find that the logistics is kind of tough, and you have revenue targets. You're wanting to scale really fast, and you're wanting to hit
Yeah.
those billions of shillings in
The numbers.
revenue, and become a unicorn.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
I think as you're saying, it's also losing. It's also about losing focus early on. And then I think it's also a factor. This is now my opinion, though. It's also a factor of a tough business environment whereby
Yes.
you have to survive in the market by all means. You get, yeah. so,
Exactly.
so you find yourself doing unrelated things. Mara una deliver tissue, mara sasa unafanya nini?
Yeah. And
So
I
you're
guess
looking at what your
Above
competitors
the
are
water.
doing.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
you're
I
looking
guess
at what your competitors are doing and the
Yeah.
numbers they're hitting. You're like, man, we gotta do something.
and your competitors are not really, they are quote unquote Kenyan companies.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So they have their bag. The bag is in a Swiss bank, but yours is in central bank. So it's different. They have some heavy funding that you don't have, and they're taking over this market that you are really hoping to like dominate. So I guess I would understand the pressure they were getting. I think maybe another hot tip for startup founders, especially the initial founders, don't run into VC's hands, because that will also lead to additional pressure on your side, and like heavy pressure than you would normally get if you're just running the company on your own,
Yeah.
or with a
Because these
co-founder
people are
that you
always
kind of,
expecting profit.
Yeah.
yeah, they're giving you a lot of money, so they expect you to like reach some really crazy revenue targets. And even the funding usually comes with such conditions that you're going to be
Conditions.
valued at $100 million within 5 years, and your profit margins are going to be like this, and realistically, you definitely not hit those targets. So it becomes a challenge. So I guess
Yeah.
maybe the tip is, don't rush to get funding. Build a sustainable business first.
Yeah, try to see if you can be sustainable on your own. I've heard
Yeah.
of companies that didn't make profit for 10 years, and I'm wondering, what?
How?
That must have been yeah, I read somewhere a company that didn't make like profit for the first 10 years, and then they,
Yeah.
so I'm
Is
wondering this,
Uber making?
when do you give up on an idea? Like, when is the right time to give up as a startup
Yeah.
founder? You're like, okay, this one hit the cubs, I'm just
Yeah.
gonna dispose it, maybe come up with a new one, or try to figure out where we go from here. Because 10 years, oh my gosh, I wouldn't
Yeah, that's,
survive the first year.
I
Is Uber
think,
making a profit, by the way? Uber was not really making a profit for quite a while, actually.
yeah.
And even with the market valuation that they currently have, they have a crazy market valuation, by the way. And I think their IPO floundered because of that issue of
Yes.
revenue generation and profit. profitability.
Yeah, Uber is kind of dying from within. One of the so the business model was, like Google usually says, don't be evil. Uber was like, be evil, right from the beginning. Because the business model was to steal the source of living for hundreds of taxi drivers, or sorry, not hundreds, millions, if not thousands, if not millions of taxi drivers around the world, and replace them and force them to join their platform. It was not going to be an organic transition between the normal taxi drivers that were there that would now see, oh, Uber is really nice, they are giving XYZ, and that's an advantage, so let's switch. What they did is, let's run this business at a loss, give customers some crazy low fare prices.
Fair
So now
prices.
we have no option but to use Uber. And what will happen is the normal guy who's using taxi will be forced to now join Uber to earn peanuts.
That
And
was evil, really. That was very
that was
evil.
very evil, yeah. If you notice recently, they suddenly switched and now Uber is very expensive.
Exactly. Uber
Yeah.
is very expensive, by the way.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think it was
Wonder.
kind of a marketing strategy, as you're saying,
Yeah.
that you go into a market, offer low prices, you kill competition, and then once you are a monopoly, you raise your prices. I think that's kind of there's kind of a name for that pricing.
Yeah. But then there's a name
Evil.
for
Evil
Mechanism.
mechanism, that one.
we can consider it evil. And also it's not sustainable because eventually people will see between the lines and read between the lines and see what you're doing. Like, with Uber, it's very
Yeah.
obvious what they're doing. And even if I go to town right now, I'd likely not take an Uber unless like I really have to. I'll probably try Bolt or something else because I know they're going to charge me ridiculous prices because they think now they've taken over the market and they can charge me whatever they want to charge. So it has led to some protests, by the way, and there was a whistleblower. There's a documentary, I think you can find it online. There's a whistleblower who's like an Uber executive from the beginning who came out openly and talked about those bad business practices that Uber has been doing for the past few years from its inception, and how that has impacted the lives of normal taxi drivers because they have to continue the same job, but now they can't earn a livable wage. And yeah, we want startups to succeed, but don't kill the market that you came to conquer. Yeah, at least
Exactly.
leave it
Don't bite
intact.
the hand that feeds you. Basically.
Exactly. Yeah.
Moving
Now
on.
they're biting the hands of the customers. They were biting the hands of the
In the
customers now.
news.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Yeah.
Moving on. In the news, coding
Yeah.
and certification. KICD. It is the Kenyan Institute of Character Development. In this case, the Kenya Institute of Curriculum.
Yeah.
They launched a coding curriculum, and Codris is implementing this. And I saw in the news. First of all, there are two issues with this. First of all, there's a shortage. I saw it in one of the newspapers that there's a shortage of teachers to teach coding. And then
There should be zero. There should be zero actually.
Yeah, the second one is that the issue there's still issues around certification of coders. So on these two issues, you find that KICD is in fact that news that piece of news that article said that it is likely to flop. The initiative is likely to flop for lack of teachers because I think it was implemented without really looking into considering the resources that schools have and the resources that TSC has in terms of staffing. So when you're looking at it, for example, for self-taught, I think it reaches a point. For example, if I've just graduated, it's easy for me to learn new things,
Yes.
But for a class 1 student, I'm a class 5 student, teaching them how to code, from scratch, it needs somebody who is trained, who is trained. You cannot tell a class 5 kid that go on YouTube and then start watching tutorials. So was this thing, Sam? Do you think that this thing was hurried, Ama? Do you think it is just the right time to implement such a thing? And these are just teething problems which are which are there in every when everything is being started. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Mayenga, you have something to say?
Oh yeah, I wanted to go first, but you can go next. I'll go next.
Okay. Yeah. So for me, a few things. So one, I think it's the intentions are pure. Like it's good. Let kids learn how to code. The future is code. The future is technology, and whichever profession they go into, they'll likely be using a computer. Surgeons usually nowadays operate on people through monitors, screens,
Yeah. Yeah.
and robotic arms. So, so it was the right thing to do. But just like any other thing that governments try to do, and government bureaucrats specifically, it was not well thought out. There's some very what we would consider common sense things that they missed out on. Like I was interrupting you there, telling you there should be zero, because there should be zero teachers on that coding thing, because they don't have it in the university and college
Yeah.
teachers training programs. There's no
Yes.
teacher training program in any college or university that is teaching teachers how to teach children coding. You get
To code. Yeah.
being a software engineer and being a teacher for software engineering, those are two separate things.
Yeah.
You have to understand the psychology of children and how to educate them, how to take care of them.
Yeah.
These are
Yeah.
kids. They're probably, some of them are still, doing their things on their pants. They don't know how to like use the washroom. So
Yeah.
you can't just pick a guy from like coding and tell them, okay, get into a classroom, teach these children how to code.
Yeah.
It won't work.
Right.
Yeah, it won't work, because there's other aspects that you need to put in place. But in terms of a program, I think it's a good idea, but they need to consider how best to execute it. But like I said, it's good because it's going to help kids understand the mechanics behind computers and the machines that we'll be using with regards to whichever profession they go into. And I think another thing that maybe they should consider is they should not teach Python or C++ or C kids. I mean, I would not let my kid go through that kind of torment if I had they were
I
doing.
think code is the one who's
Yeah.
developing curriculum. So I think they have
Yeah.
taken care of that part. Yeah, and somebody mentioned that this is actually there's a thread that I read on Twitter, and the analysis of this person was that this is actually vendor driven, where if you are going to implement such a thing through a private vendor, then the interest of that vendor
Yes.
more or less drove that adoption. So you find that it is actually such special interest. For example, let's say somebody just happens to have shares in Codris, and they want this thing. But you have to
Oh,
implement this thing, So the hurried nature,
yeah.
in the person's analysis, the hurried nature of this of the implementation,
Yes.
could be due to such
Yeah.
factors, for instance, like special interests. But I think the curriculum that Codris has is going to take care of that
Yes.
aspect. So what you're talking about the teachers, there being lack of teachers, I think that's now a serious shortcoming which is going to hurt
Yeah.
that implementation.
I mean,
Just
I
CBC.
mean, if they use Indians on YouTube, you're set to go. But yeah, it's still it's still not sufficient.
Yeah, they should go to YouTube and hire the Indian
Yeah,
tutors there.
exactly.
But anyway,
They saved my degree, man. They should come through.
exactly. Yeah, but bottom line, I think the government should take education seriously. If you're going to introduce a reform, you should take your time. Do, there are things that we don't know about. They're supposed to like do evaluations. They're supposed to analyze how that's going to impact. Things that are related towards curriculum development, and there's a number of like procedures that they're supposed to follow before they introduce such things into the learning process for their kids, for people's kids. So I feel like you're saying, probably this was driven by special interest. Somebody wants to make a quick buck, so they kind of got this in, and they know somebody who
Couple
knows
of
somebody who can make a call to somebody. So yeah, exactly. So I think that's where they fall short. But if this was like if they were really serious about it, then they would have considered those factors that we mentioned. They would have gotten, like you said, get a good curriculum, analyze the curriculum, do some benchmarking with it. Go to some countries where they do this for like kids, see how that works for them, and implement it in a way that makes sense. Like, in my village, children still study under a tree,
Yeah,
there's no classrooms, there's no electricity, there's
exactly.
no, I know, of course they've said, oh, gee, we don't need to worry about that. The ones who have
Yes,
the
we
classrooms will
used.
get the computers.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I as a person who's passionate about tech education, I think it's a brilliant idea because anyway, the future is tech. We are going into an age where we have electric cars and all these things. So it's important that the community or the society is integrated in that manner. But we are just not ready as a society for that sort of shift. Yeah, because even without even looking into the aspect of teachers, the places themselves, unless this is a project for middle class and rich people, I don't think people
Yeah,
on the ground, the people that are being targeted, that would be
yes.
because almost how what is the percentage of the poverty levels in Kenya? Quite a bit. So
Yeah.
the majority of students who should have access to this coding program are many, and it is the same students or the same schools that there's a lack of teachers, electricity is barely there. It's a mess. Even in the election period, we saw these issues emerge because you could hear, oh, this place doesn't have electricity, oh, we have to use ABC to access this and this place. So how then are we talking about introducing
Yeah,
coding programs to these schools when these children are hungry? How are they going to be learning Java when they need food?
yeah, exactly. I
So
mean, if we live
yeah,
in a country where, sorry to interrupt you, but as long as we live in a country where the president initiates a program to build desks for kids to sit on, like that's like
exactly. That's like a thing that needs the president to open. Then we are so far from having coding classes and programs in high schools and
yeah, yeah,
primary schools. Yeah, and
exactly.
and even from like personal experience, because I have a CS background, the teachers themselves did not even have somebody's coming to teach you C++. They are
Yeah.
reading code from the internet. Like, madam, what?
Yes,
How? How am I supposed to learn when you're seeing this code for the first time in this class? How are you teaching me? Because so
e-
if even in the higher institutions of learning, we still have a problem with the curriculum. They're teaching languages that are outdated 10, 20 years ago. Because
yes,
why was I learning about Pascal? Who is using Pascal in this day and age? You know,
exactly.
for
Yeah,
my for like school programs, they insist on a particular technology or a particular, you have to use trending. If it's AI, you need to create something that is in AI, but nobody, what I was taught in school and what I was doing for my project, there was like no correlation. It was literally like I was doing the project as a course on its own for me to
yeah,
understand what I was doing. And if there's still such gaps between what I'm learning, what I'm doing in my project, what is needed in the industry, then we are really not ready to be doing coding programs in primary and high schools at the moment. A good idea, but we are not prepared for it at the moment.
yeah. Yeah, you're true there. I think we are not ready for that. And unfortunately, some of us are skeptics, so we kind of feel like nothing is going to change. But if we decide to be hopeful and hope things are going to change, then the change should start with having classrooms, having electricity wired to those classrooms, having a feeding program for these kids, and
Yeah.
introducing the coding first in the teachers training curriculum in colleges and universities, so that the teachers that
Mm.
graduate with this knowledge in mind can go and now educate those kids. I hope they would go to iHub or some tech hub and start fetching 20, 22-year-olds who went and did a computer science degree to go and start teaching kids to code, because that would be a disaster. That would be a disaster. I
I
hope they.
mean, you're true.
Yeah,
Not everybody. I believe some people have the knowledge, but not everybody knows how to mentor people. Mentorship is a skill that
yeah,
most people should learn, but really don't have. So yeah, I hope they don't do that.
yeah. The
I
baby is
very
crying.
much.
Yeah, the kid is crying. You're trying to teach them how to declare a function, and they are crying. They are crying out of their mind. But you are not taught that, when kids are crying, it probably means they need to
There's no
go and talk.
emotional intelligence from your side.
Yeah, there's no emotional intelligence. So what you'll do is panic, and you're wondering, what do I do now? You get, because you are not trained for that. You're a coder, but that's not what you're trained for.
True. Yeah. So, like, you were talking about Life Planner, and are there any character development stories that you have since you started it, maybe last year and now? What are some of the lessons that you've learned on this journey, and maybe what are some of the things that you know now that you didn't know that you would like to maybe implement, or things that you would do better when you were starting out
Yeah,
with what you
building a
know
startup.
now?
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. So building a startup is. I look at it as an adventure. It's like the hero's journey. You leave your comfort zone and to take this and new path that apparently not everybody has taken before,
The
because
road
not
least traveled.
yeah, nobody has like traveled, and
Yeah.
you don't know what you're going what you're going to find. You don't know if you're going to succeed or fail. Of course you hope to succeed, and yeah, true. It's true that starting from the time I started building Life Planner all through to this, at the stage we've reached, I've seen a lot of, I've learned a lot of things, I've faced a lot of challenges, and I think there are several things. There's multiple things that like I can pinpoint and be like, wow, I didn't know about that, and I was really scared about this, and eventually it worked out. Or this really freaked me out, and it worked out. So there's like several things. I think if I could pinpoint, I guess the hardest bit about building a life planner, at least up to the point it has reached, was getting a product that people were willing to pay for. I think that was the hardest challenge, because the initial versions of the app, the initial iterations and the initial ideas that I had, that we had,
Yeah.
even before like I got my co-founder in, were not really resonating with the customer. And at some point you would feel like giving up, because it seems the idea that you have in your head that people are really going to be happy using, turns out nobody wants to even try it.
Nobody's interested in what you're selling.
Yeah, nobody's interested in what you're selling.
Yeah.
And I guess the toughest part, and maybe this is something that if a co-founder is listening, maybe they'll get this. This is like the deep side is, your friends will not use your product, and your family
Oh
will
my
not
god,
really
the
care.
support. You will feel like you have no support from your friends at the
Yeah,
initial stages of you feel like you're alone in the journey. Oh, I get
yeah.
that.
But
My
we usually advise that when you're starting a business, there's no way you are going to start your business so that for family and
yeah,
your friends. I think those people will
You're
not
gonna
support.
cry, yeah? It's gonna
Yeah.
be so disappointing for you because sometimes let's say my friend is selling like an umbrella and I already
yes,
have one. How am I supposed to buy two? I mean I could, but how many umbrellas will you buy just to support your friend, you know? So it gets to a
yeah,
point that it will feel like you're alone in that journey. So yeah, I
exactly.
get that point. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, so that
Okay.
was hard. There's a point one of my friends called me up and was like, "Yo, Sam, just get a job.
This is not for you.
This is not for you. Just get a job." And I think that was the biggest challenge, and fighting that and continuing to build the idea, and feeling like even if my friends are not around, this is what I believe in, and this is what I'm going to pursue. And if
Mm,
it works out, fine. If it doesn't work out, then I'll have learned whatever I've learned. I think that is kind of the thing that I can look back to and be like, yeah, if you believe in something and you believe in it deeply enough, you just work on it. don't worry too much about what people think, even if they are your friends or your family.
Develop some
It's
thick
about
skin.
develop some thick skin, and of course take negative feedback. Negative feedback is probably the best feedback. So if someone tells you, oh, this thing is nowhere, then you're like, okay, so what can I do to get it to a point where it's where
It is
you want it to
somewhere.
be?
Yeah.
Wait, somewhere you get.
Yeah.
So that was I guess the most deepest thing that I went through. There's a time I was hanging out with my friend and I got a subscription from South Africa. So somebody subscribed to the app. So of course we ran a subscription model, and
Yeah.
that was my first annual subscription. So I was so excited. So I come to my friend and show him, hey, look, I got an annual subscription. It's the first annual subscription we've gotten, and I'm so excited. And my friend is like, Sam, it seems this guy subscribed by accident. So then back of my mind, like, so you don't even think this product is what somebody like paying for.
Look, dump that friend. That is not a good person. Dump him or her.
Yeah, exactly. So it's funny. Since then, we've had thousands of other similar subscriptions. So if I listen to that and like gave up, like, oh, this thing, it seems people are just subscribing to it by accident, then I would have it would have killed the idea. So if you're a startup founder out there,
It's a
and,
free trial.
with this situation, please have thick skin, like Wayenga says, have thick skin, and if you believe in the idea, just pursue it. Of course, like Wayenga, you've mentioned, you should know when to like give up. I think it's Fred who mentioned you should know when to give up. And for me, the point to give up is when the product you have is not, it's been like a year or it's been like particular duration and you don't have a sustainable business model, and you've looked at the market and the market has proven that this is not the right product for it. So you have to either pivot or just build some other idea. Like me, I gave up on the ideas that I had initially because I knew they were not going to work. And it takes courage and strength to appreciate that, oh, this idea, I love it very much, I believe in it, but it's not going to work. You get, and just build something else, because you have one life. You don't get stuck with something that won't work out eventually. So I think those are the main ones.
In short, learn when to quit.
Learn when to quit and learn when to not listen to people who want to like kill your dream.
True. Especially that one.
That one I'll never forget. That was crazy. I've never. One day I'll reach out to that friend of mine and ask him, what were you thinking?
They don't know about the successes of Life Plan at the moment. You should probably send them a list of all your subscribers. Tell them, you know what? These are the list of all the annual subscribers on my application at the moment.
I think they can estimate from my install numbers, but I'm sure they've forgotten that encounter. You usually remember the things that are deep to you, but the other person forgot about it. So So hey, remember that time we were hanging out and you're like, this guy subscribed by accident. That got to me, but look, it seems we had some traction. So that was funny.
Imagine. So anything you could do better, like now that you're like, damn, if I was starting again now, I would probably do ABCD better than I did when I was beginning.
That's a tough one. There's a lot of things that I could have done better. I think this kind of comes to like my own personality. I'm not, and this even affected me when I was like looking for work and stuff. I mean, in my employment journey, I'm not a cutthroat business person. So when it comes to like negotiating things and setting prices and such, I'm not very, very keen. And I'm lucky right now that I have a co-founder who's like more, based on that. So my co-founder is not an IT person. I intentionally look for somebody who was not like into IT or software engineering, whatever. And somebody who was just business. So that's their domain. I know in business you need to know how to make deals, you know how to negotiate contracts.
Write proposal,
you need to do writing proposals and stuff like that. So I guess for me, that was what I think I would have done better in the past, so that the initial things that maybe would come as a cost for the company or would come as an unnecessary expense, I would have maybe done a better
Cut
negotiation.
it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but now I have somebody who does that for the company, and I kind of relieves me of that burden, and I can continue to be myself, the
Yeah. The
non-tactical
techie.
business person, the techie, the
Yeah.
coder, the nerd.
Yeah, the nerd, the brains.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. But you also, I feel like it's really important to also learn these things just in case you have to be thrown inside the ring and you have an idea of what to do, right?
Yeah, exactly. I still insist on like knowing and
Yeah,
understanding the yes, Fred. Uh,
On that the same vein, there's a time I was thinking that as a startup founder, you
yeah,
as you were saying, Sam, that you have to wear a lot of hats. You're the marketing manager, you are the
The
HR,
finance,
you'll be the
the
finance
support,
guy,
DevOps.
yeah.
and all that. And I was thinking that sometimes we as developers, like, we are always one track minded. Like,
Yeah.
you don't see yourself, maybe you usually see yourself as a startup founder, but you don't prepare yourself a lot for that journey. Along your journey
Mm.
to being a startup founder, for example,
Yes.
instead of just coding, for example, all through, sometimes just get into the habit of reading books. Buy a marketing book, and get to know how marketing is done. uh,
Yes.
just be curious around some of these things, like how is hiring done, how can you hire effective employees, how do you fire, and even the basics of finance, like a profit and loss statement, how it is
Yes.
constructed, the balance sheet, what is a balance sheet, what is a cash flow statement. I think one of the pitfalls of developers turned founders is that
Yes.
you find that, yes, your product can be great, it is groundbreaking, it is revolutionary, but you are just so poor at marketing that nobody ever comes to know about this awesome product that you had. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I totally agree with you, Fred. And I think if I was asked, one of the things that I got right at the beginning was educating myself. I really tried to really educate myself on just business and things that were out of the scope of the tech side of running a startup. So,
Yeah.
like just understanding what are companies, what is an LLC, what is a limited company, what is a cap table, what does it mean, like, that you have shares in a company, how are dividends done, what are the responsibilities of directors, you get. So educating yourself on things that are outside the tech space, or the tech ecosystem, is very important if this is the journey that you decide to pursue, because your coding skills will only get you so far. Once you
Yeah.
have a product out there,
Yeah.
people have to know about it. No matter how good it is, if people don't know about it, it will just
You have to
remain.
network. You have to
You
know
have to
people, how to speak to people,
exactly.
how to
And
make
I
a
think
pitch.
I think marketing is one of the most. It is very hard, actually. Marketing
Yeah,
and
it
sales.
is.
You know,
Yeah.
I think it
when,
is
when I
very hard.
when I finished campus, I tried selling insurance. Has any of you ever tried selling insurance?
Wow! You had an interesting life if you tried selling insurance.
Hey, I can tell you, I
Selling
got
what?
selling insurance.
Oh my god. Oh, I think that's the hardest thing you can
Yeah,
ever do in this
yeah,
life.
and I think selling insurance, like selling anything, just being a salesperson,
Yes.
Yeah.
is it teaches you a lot about things, because I
Mm.
used to sell insurance for this big corporation, like it's a big, very big corporation,
Talking
like
from
Uh-huh.
experience.
one of the leading insurance firms in Kenya. And
Yeah.
just interacting with the customers, I used to think that, do these people actually know that the agents that they just hire and fire carelessly
Yeah.
are actually the face of the company? Like, it is
Mm.
the agent who is the contact between the insurance company and the customer, and it's actually the insurance, the credibility of the agent that will make some of these customers purchase insurance. And when you look at the file of the company, like from the CEO to the sweeper, you find
Yes.
that the customer is likely, same for the corporate customers, the normal customer is likely to be interacting with these low-level employees like the agent. And
Yeah.
so you find that if your salespeople are like demoralized, because if you're paying somebody on commission and by the selling insurance is so hard, and you wonder how these companies are making huge profits. Like you find that, hey, Breta Billy makes you 2 billion in
Yes.
profit. It is actually the effort of the agent, even maintaining ongoing, customer relations, because you have to call the agent, you have to call the customer to remind them that they need to pay their premiums. And if they're not paying their premiums, then you need to find out why, So it is actually a hard job being an agent. And so I think some of these experiences that I've had, I used to hate them back then. But if I were to start up a company today, I would really consider the aspect of selling. Like, how do you sell this product? Because it is great, as you're saying, Sam. It
Yes.
is one thing to have an awesome product like Life Planner, but it's
Yeah.
also another thing to convince the customer that this is actually a product that can be helpful in your life. And I think a lot
Yeah.
of founders really miss that aspect of marketing and selling.
Yeah, I mean, you see them on Twitter talking about, we have the best performance. We're able to cover the biggest area with like our servers. Our uptime is 98%.
Yeah.
Nobody really cares about your server's uptime.
Nobody,
What's
average
important?
customer doesn't even know what a server is.
Yeah, the average
Like,
guy doesn't know what a
just
server
want to
is.
ensure that is the website working? Is it always on when I need it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And if I go there, will I find what I need? Like, I
Yeah.
don't go to Jumia to check whether the website is live.
The
I'm going
website
to
is
make
there.
an order.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. So you're totally right. Marketing. I usually like grouping them together. Sales and marketing.
Yeah.
They are the blood. If a business was a living organism, there would be the blood and the brain.
Yeah.
They would be, because they flow everywhere. Nothing can exist when those things are not taken care of. Because the sales and marketing is how you get customers, and it's how revenue flows into the company. And when revenue flows into the company, it means engineering is covered, research and development is covered. It means all your employees are happy and you're able to pay your bills, which is really critical. Otherwise, you become uh, those startups that we mentioned earlier. So it is very critical, and it's somewhere that, like I said earlier, it's where you need to like educate yourself, so that because you're a software engineer, you don't know these things, and when you're starting the startup, you don't have money to hire people to do these things. Like
Yeah.
even LP where we are currently, we can't just take Safaricom's latest and greatest marketing guru that they have there, that they're probably paying like 6-figure salary, and say, oh, we are poaching you for LP. We don't have those resources currently.
Yeah.
Okay. So internally we have to like educate ourselves, and with the talent that we have currently, which is like really brilliant people, including myself and my co-founder, we have to like put our brains together and educate ourselves on the things that we don't know, so that we can cover that sales and marketing bit very well. So it's very critical, Fred, I agree with you. And it's what runs the company. The tech
Yeah,
is, like I say, the tech ni kama kiberiti. Any company inaweza tengeneza kiberiti, but
Yeah.
selling that much is what matters. You get? Yeah.
Watu wa sales wanakuanga wamedharauliwa.
That is very sad.
Ukiona
That is
watu wa
very
sales
sad.
wanachapa mguu hapa town.
Yeah, those are the guys who are bringing money to the company.
As
They
in,
should be the most
true.
respected. Yeah, they should be the most respected. And even in the tech space, I think marketing is the most critical thing. If you have that covered, I think you've heard of this scenario where you have they talk about having a startup with a poor product but excellent marketing. And then there's a startup with an excellent product but poor marketing. And then the company with like a poor product with excellent marketing ends up succeeding. Of course, not in the long term, but you know of Apple, right?
Oh my God. Look at this.
Yeah, so they have the best marketing, but their products, some of the products don't really work really well, like the phones that bend. But they end up making a lot of money and huge sales, and they're like $1 trillion company right now, despite the kind of not very great products they've built in the past. If you go into their history, the initial computers they're talking about either the best way to make the computer work is to push it gently across your desk into the dustbin, and then it will be able to work properly, because the engineering was so terrible. But because the marketing was really good, the company has survived all those years, and now it's a force to reckon with. So marketing is very critical. I guess I'm just repeating that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So this, I feel like we've had such an interesting conversation. We can run this through midnight, and the Gen Z mind can only concentrate for so long. So we're gonna
Gen Zs.
we're
Hey.
gonna, we're gonna keep that in mind.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
we are working with the 7 second attention span generation now.
By the way,
So
let me just ask: am I the only millennial on the call?
I
On
think
the
you're two oldies here. I'm the only Gen
Fred, are
Z.
you a millennial?
Kama in 2014 when you are joining first year.
He was in third year.
I was in third year.
Yeah.
Ay,
Gen Z.
heshima idumu bana.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm the only Gen Z here. I'm
Okay.
representing the youth in the
Yes.
team.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we will have to stop it here because yeah, we've had such a lovely session. But yeah, we can continue this tomorrow so that maybe it's a series on startups instead
Yes.
of making it one long session. So it's been a very an eye opener having you on the podcast today, and we hope that we can continue this conversation on other episodes of our podcasts. By the way, Fred, we can make this a series, right?
Yeah. It
Yeah.
can be made.
Yeah. It's been lovely having you, Sam, and yes, I hope you have had as much fun talking to us on the podcast as we have
Yeah.
engaging you here today.
Yeah, it has been fun. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I hope in the series that you do, I'll be there. I'll be featured. I like this kind of discussions. Maybe the other thing I would tell the audience is, if you still haven't, go to if you're running an Android phone, go to Google Play, download Life Planner, and start planning your life with the app right now. If you are the iPhone community, you can go to the App Store. You'll find Life Planner for your iPad and your iPhone, and even for your MacBook, and start using the product. I believe you will love it. And if you don't end up loving it as much as I hope you do, please make sure to leave us some feedback on our Twitter at lifeplanner_co, or you could even send me an email personally at Samuel at the lifeplanner.co, and we'll be very happy to engage you. And Mayenga, sorry, I had to take that time to talk and be stuff. But thank you so
It's
much.
okay, it's so good. Yeah, please.
Yeah.
We want you to have more subscribers
More,
so that
more.
you
My,
can
my,
We
yeah.
need
you
like
can tell that friend one day, you know what? We
yeah,
hit 1 million subscribers on our app.
downloads. Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
I'll be saying that in some other. Let me not go to the specifics,
Yeah.
but will probably be of our call. So thank you so much. I really appreciate this, and I am looking forward to the next one. I'm looking forward to the next
Yeah, sure, sure. We're looking
Yeah,
forward to having you on the next one
we have
too.
more things with you, Sam, because you are one of the advocates for the space, the tech space in Kenya having a podcast.
one.
So yeah. I think we'll have more of you in the future. And to our audience, thank you so much for joining us on this episode. And yeah, it's been a pleasure having Sam Owino on this podcast, and Malin Mayenga, the host, and I, Fred Uko.